Good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you're joining. I see some people have already joined. If you could let us know where you're joining from, that would be great. We love to meet in person, but I don't think we can get Nadim to the Houston area. But I don't know others, but I was personally very interested about knowing what's going on with this OneLake Security. So Nadim has kindly decided to join us virtually to talk about OneLake Security. A little bit about us. We are part of the Houston Fabric user group. And as things growing, it's becoming more and more interesting. I see some people. Hi, Shashikala. Thanks for joining from Houston. And if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and ask in the chat. I will pay attention to that. But with that, I'll hand this over to Nadim. If you could give a little bit of introduction about who you are and what is going on with this OneLake Security, what it is, and how it's supposed to unify the security.
So thanks very much, Khaled, for the invitation. Very much appreciated to be joining the user group to introduce a new concept to you on Microsoft Fabric. Shortly about me, I'm a senior analytics engineer based in Berlin at KI Performance GmbH, a German company based in Germany. And I've been passionate about Microsoft BI stack since more than 11 years now, starting to build solutions on Excel with VBA and then moving into CRM, starting with Power BI when it was released in 2015, and moving around. This happened all in Mexico, and then I went to Germany to start my career. I am 35 years old. Will turn 36 next June. And yeah, that's pretty much it about me.
Awesome. You say that you had 11 years of Power BI experience, which is not possible, but
10 of Power BI experience since 2015 and 11
no, I know, man. I just was positive again.
with the good old Excel. Excel.
I started from Excel as well, so I can relate. I was in finance and Excel and all that fun stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, hands down, Excel was amazing. I did stuff that I did not know was possible, building entire programs that replaced software on Excel. But then when Power BI came, it was just a new level. And then now, 2 years ago, nearly 2 years ago, Fabric, or I don't know, 22 months ago, Fabric came along, and that changed the game for me. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I studied accounting and business, so I'm not an educated software engineer or anything like that.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I'm a finance director myself. Okay, so
I'm basically self-taught. So I did a lot of YouTubing. Yeah.
okay, cool.
Cool. I'm going to talk about OneLake Security. OneLake Security has been now in public preview and was in private preview a while ago. I did also a similar session in the FabCon in Vienna. This is where I met Khaled as well. And that session was a lot of fun. But at the time, the solution was still in private preview. So all the stuff that I was showing was still in private preview, and I always had to defend the lack of production readiness with the fact that it was in private preview. Now it's in public preview, and I will be doing the same thing. I will be telling you that the solution is not ready for production because it is still in preview, right? We are riding the Fabric wave ahead of everyone else, and a lot of the stuff that's being released in preview is simply not production ready and should not be applied to production.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the good part. I think if you like, what would be helpful to is understand what's coming from where, right? And it's not production ready from that perspective because obviously it's in preview. The question becomes is what to pay attention to, how it to design architecture, what dependencies it create and whatnot. Like, for example, I'll throw one of my questions earlier, right? So for example, um, I would love to see what's happening with this entire thing around is it only for lakehouses, warehouses, SQL DB, and whatnot, right? We have all kinds of stuff. How are these comings? How does this unify and whatnot? So I have questions around that, and I was giving you a hard time on FabCon if nobody asked. It's that question about we do RLS at the dimension level. The the problem is we cannot say OLS, OneLake Security, because we have an object level security, but I think OneLake Security OLS will become OneLake Security, and object level security in Power BI is going to go into oblivion given the push for it. So it'd be good to understand, like, just lay out a path, what it is and how its impact and the path for it. But I think we are all in this journey together, for lack of a better word, because schema support is still in public preview for Lakehouse. All the new features are on the schema enabled and whatnot. So I don't think this is one of the features that Microsoft shouldn't deprecate. I can kind of say can't deprecate, but shouldn't deprecate.
Yeah, so there is the little shadow over these some of the preview features like data marts and metrics that are being deprecated after having been in preview for years. OneLake Security won't be this kind of situation because it is so essential to Fabric as it is to have OneLake in place as a unified data lake. So I will answer all your questions throughout these next slides. I've prepared some slides. I've also prepared a lot of demos. OneLake Security is role-based, access control-based security. So what it offers and solves is things that have been pain points historically. So we were promised with Fabric that we will have this unified data platform. It started being a data analytics platform and it evolved into a data and AI platform. Obviously, AI Foundry is not part of it, but a lot of things go hand in hand when it comes to AI. And it is a complex fabric of data products. OneLake is this unified security layer with all the different data storage and transformation possibilities on top of it, including warehousing. So the Synapse warehouse that Microsoft was cherry picking from Azure, the Azure SQL database being part of it, the Databricks Lakehouse from before, state of the art. Lakehouse technology sitting on OneLake, all of these engines compatible with the Delta Parquet format on OneLake, and we were able to unify all the different technologies, including a multi-cloud solution on Fabric without having to migrate any of the solutions, which really made Fabric that special. But essentially, one of the big things that was missing was also a unified security model. So we didn't have the full offering. We only had the unified data analytics and AI solution, state-of-the-art transformation processes, real-time intelligence, and so on. We are now getting a lot of governance offerings, but this unified security model was missing. Now it's here, but only partially, right? So what I'm going to show you is mostly the Lakehouse technology with OneLake Security. I'll be showing you different aspects of it. But the pain points that we had previously was that security was siloed, right? We had to maintain security at different destinations. The semantic model itself had security items, the Lakehouse, or the T-SQL security concepts, and so on the Synapse warehouse, on the SQL database, and so on. All of these were individually configured. Now that is not the case anymore. You simply configure it in one place and it will inherit. So it will be a bottom-up approach. But we also had the pain point of it being risky, right? So that what I mean by that is that if you, for example, gave someone access to a lakehouse, it simply overrode all the other configurations that you had in the semantic model and so on. We had 4 different destinations: workspace permissions, artifact permissions, semantic model permissions, and app audiences, which means Power BI apps. All of these still persist. And what we are going to look at is the hypothesis that a user or user group, so a security user group, Azure user group, has restricted access to OneLake data from everything that is linked to a Lakehouse database warehouse or just a query language database. In this case, I'll be only focusing on the Lakehouse because this is the scope at the moment of OneLake Security. I can't officially tell you what's coming, but I can tell you that it is going to fall over to all the other technologies and complete the unification of security across other warehousing options. And the idea is that access is restricted. The access restriction is inherited across all Fabric artifacts. And by artifacts, I mean data agents that take data from a semantic model, that takes data from an SQL endpoint, that takes data from a lakehouse. All you want to do is configure on the lakehouse, and it should inherit into all the different artifacts. Yeah. So this is what it looks like in terms of what gets validated first. When you look at OneLake Security, first, the system evaluates your workspace permissions. So for this to work, the maximum workspace permission that you can have is view access. Then your lakehouse permission, so the artifact itself, the lakehouse artifact gets evaluated. And if all of these don't grant you access on that level, then the OneLake Security role-based access control kicks in. And then you can see here how this works. Yeah. So the first thing evaluated the workspace, stage 2, all the warehousing options, and then the OneLake data itself. So things to watch out for is that some things, it's a hierarchical process at the moment still. Yeah. I can't promise you can't tell you yet what's coming in terms of this, but this will change. It's in preview and it will change. But at the moment, it still is configured this way, that first the workspace access role gets evaluated.
It's going to change, or that's going to stay normal? Like, for example, we can apply row-level security in a Power BI model, but if we add somebody to the workspace at a contributor level, it will override the row-level security, right? So that behavior even is still common in Power BI, right?
At the moment. Yeah. At the moment. And this is something that is causes business risk, right? Someone who says, yeah, listen, I want to contribute, I want to have build permission on the semantic model. The admin doesn't know better, adds the person as a contributor to the workspace, or in this case, on a file. I consider this object level security. It actually is item level security, table and item level security in Fabric OneLake Security, but I will be calling it object level security, so it seems more familiar to you. The first stage that we have is we can configure row level security. This should be familiar to you. You say that Sally only has access to region C using a T-SQL statement. You say with a where statement where region equals C, and then you add Sally to that group. And then Sally only gets to see region C data from a table. The same with column level security. I select all columns and I delete the column name, and Sally won't be able to see the names. And for the object level security, I exclude the table from my OneLake Security, and it will be locked for Sally. We can make it complex if we want, and most likely will do in a productive environment, which means that we can combine all these things. Row level security and column level security can be combined, as seen on the left-hand side, where region A and B get locked away for Sally, including the name column. But we can now combine all these things. I don't want her to see table B because it has salary information, so I exclude it from her security role. And I also want to lock away folder A, which includes all the sensitive data inside the raw data, so that she could also not access that. That's called item level security. Again, I name it object level security. The table one is table level security. And then on the left-hand side, we have object row level security and column level security combined. Yeah, so it can get complex. And there are some things to consider when applying OneLake security. Things that I noticed that are kind of a pain at the moment when using this, but a pain that is, again, only temporary, because this is also subject to change. But I need to configure OneLake security on a table level basis. When we are working with tabular data, so structured data in the Lakehouse, and we have a table, and we configure security on that table, for example, giving now a parcel, let's say that we are in a logistics organization, and I want to filter the security role, as you can see at the top, where parcel category is W01. What I cannot do is change table. So at the bottom, you see the table, dim parcel, and put a select statement with a subquery that takes data from a different table and makes sure that these parcel IDs kind of perform an inner join and filter automatically. Joins are not permitted. So essentially what this means that I have to transform all my data. If I want to filter dim parcel to be category W01, I need to transform that data and join the dim dimension parcel category column onto the dimension parcel table to be able to filter it as well with a select where statement. I cannot perform a join. That means I have to kind of, I would call it denormalize in that case. I'm not sure if that's correct, but kind of join all
That's
the
denormalization. I think the easiest way I can think of is like for us when we're doing Power BI security, right? We have a customer master and we are doing filters on salesperson, right? The fact table doesn't have salesperson. We just did a filter on like the row level security and it automatically filters the invoice table.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have a relationship, but the Lakehouse doesn't have relationships. It's evaluated on a table level basis. The same way that, for example, I will show you later, the data agent works. It performs SQL statements in the background to do joins. We don't have relationships. We don't have a data model at this stage. We're talking silver level transformation. So if you want to, for example, the fact table to be filtered down to the dim parcel category, then you need to pre-transform the data, join the parcel category from your dimension table onto the fact table to be able to filter that column as well and the fact table. Again, not the best ideal situation at the moment, but also not fixed. This is going to change as well. But this is the current status of things. Yeah. I didn't test this today in public preview. I tested this in private preview. It wasn't working. But this is also something that will become more powerful in the future. And I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think I was also giving the product team hard time in the tech corner at on Europe, and they say we know it's coming.
Exactly, and this is what it looks like after joining category ID via category ID to the dim parcel table. Now I can filter the category. So to perform all the demos that I'm going to perform, I obviously had to transform my data, essentially.
And there was a request from Mahesh. He was asking about, are you going to show any CLS and RLS? I think this is what you're going into.
Yes, a good part
for them.
all of it. Lots of demos coming up. Okay. Yeah, so what about folder level security? This is called item level security. Again, I'm talking about object level security here, but essentially I can have two roles. If I give read access to role 1 for folder 1, they also get the children in that hierarchy access. And that means that it gets inherited down. So if I want to control access to a specific file, I have to put that file into a folder and give that security onto that folder. Yeah. So if I want to give someone access to only one file, I have to build a folder hierarchy for this to work. Really important and kind of tricky to do. But let's say I want to give someone access to a certain file. If I give them access to folder 1, all the subfolders will also get access. Yeah, even if that file is in folder 1. So you have to be really careful about that.
So you can give access to the file 1, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So if for example, I want to give access only to file 1111, but not file 11, then I have to give access to the subfolder, and the parent folder will not get access.
But
Yeah.
can you give access to the item itself without giving it to the folder in the file section?
No, it's folder level security. Yeah.
Okay. So it's not exactly like SharePoint, right? In SharePoint, we can throw a file and control the security, but so file, like in the OneLake's file section, if we're controlling security at an item level, it has to be controlled using a specific folder and understanding that anything under that folder automatically
Yes.
grants access.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. So it's a folder structure. You have to, and this is a good practice because you know it will be nice and structured your file section and folders and subfolders and stuff. But this is how you control access to files. You cannot give access directly to a file. Something important to watch out. Okay. Good news and bad news. Import mode does not work at the moment. The reason is that this is cached data in your local storage, and it's not.
I think
Yep.
I might be jumping ahead. I have a question specifically around that.
Yeah.
The example, for the same reason, the import mode doesn't work because the import mode has no connection to the lake at the point. It refreshes with the author's permission. Uh, Question is, if I'm working on a lake house and stuff like that, I say this is my BI area or whatnot, or self-service area or something like that. And the user creates, materializes a table. The new materialized table will not inherit the security from the source, correct? It's the same concept of import, right? Because you're materializing it again. You have to apply security on that, correct?
No. So anything that goes scans directly the OneLake or through SQL Server analysis services or the SQL endpoint is subject to OneLake security. Anything that caches locally and does not directly query data from the OneLake will experience individually configured security, such as import mode. Yeah, it gets more tricky if you have a composite model. Yeah, so now you can combine direct lake mode with import mode. So you have to be really careful. What yeah, so I will show you also an example with Power BI now. I will shortly go into the demos, but this is something that you also have to look out for. Import mode right now is not part of the OneLake security model. Yeah. Again, I can't predict to you when this is going to change or if it's going to change, but yeah.
I love how you say that.
Yeah. Then also external sources, external third-party applications that query data through the API. They will not, because Microsoft Fabric doesn't know how the technology exactly queries role-based access control. If you have OneLake security configured, they will do a hard deny. Yeah. So if there's role-level security filter applied for a user, you will get denied access to the entire table rather than actually getting the role-level security, because Fabric doesn't know how to configure this. Yeah, it's like, oh, there's an external application trying to access, and Fabric says, I don't know how to configure this, so I just deny access. Yeah, so you'll get a hard deny on these things. Also,
Essentially, right now, OneLake security and external API does not work together.
it works, but it will just block everything if it's configured. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and now I'll go into the demos, and here again, just the hard asterisks on this that this is still on preview. The first one I'm going to show you is the basics. Yeah, so how to configure this, or how I configured it with the Fabric Lakehouse. What you see here is on a single workspace. You see a user or user group. They first get the security role, then role level security, column level security, object level security applies to the lakehouse, which applies to the storage, which applies to SQL endpoint, and gets inherited all the way up. All I had to do is configure it on the security role, and then everything's automated. And this is a huge step forward into unifying security. Yeah. So let me show you what this looks like. This is a lakehouse I built for demo purposes. Random, again, logistics stuff. And right now I'm the power user. So I called myself tutor one. I also have a user that I apply security to. So I will show you the admin view, and I will show you the user view. So I have two different accounts. Here you can see I've essentially 4 different tables and one random table called fact columns that I was testing around with. The first thing you need to do is you need to create a lakehouse with schema-enabled lakehouse. Again, already mentioned, this is in preview as well. So, one preview to the next preview. And then you create a role. Yeah, so you click new, you create a role, you get the default reader role. We just ignore this and don't delete this, by the way, even if you can, because it can become messy. Just create a new one, and then you, in this case, I can click edit. I can show you here this Fabric Tutor 2. So this random user I put into this role is a member, and then using this friendly interface, I can configure access. Yeah, so you can see here, I've the dimension folder, and I've configured access to it. Access control to it, but I also have here, you can see 2 different symbols. One is for row level security and column level security on these items. Yeah, the fact and essentially you also see that I have not included the table dim parcel cost. So dim parcel cost is missing here, which means if you don't include it, they will get no access to that table. Yeah. And the other things that you see, obviously, is dim parcel category. So if I go here on the row security, you can see here my select statement. Again, what I cannot do is a join, and but it will change. Then if I go to the column level security, you can see here I cannot put a new rule because I already included all the columns. Yeah, if I want to exclude a column, I just remove it. And then new rule enables, and I can then again see which column to apply to. And then I click save, and it applies to. Again here, this was now successfully applied. Everything's in preview, as you can see. And then you get a nice interface where you can quickly switch between things. If you're asking yourself now, that's great, Nadim, but what about if I have to do this for 1,000 different roles? I will not be doing this. Yes, you will not. You will be using an API, a REST API. And you can configure all of this using a REST API as well. So more scalable code first solution, do not use that interface. It will take years. And imagine trying to also maintain this way. You have to check each one individually. This is not enterprise scale interface. This is more for mid to small size enterprise.
So the row level security has to be done with a wire statement. Are we gonna get like a Power BI like feature equals to this equals to that? Like Power BI desktop, the row level security has picked the columns and whatnot, just equals to what.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, Power BI inherits us at the moment in Direct Lake and Direct Query, so you don't have to do anything in Power BI anymore. But for import mode, I don't know how this is going to change. I hope it will, obviously. Yeah, but let me just quickly show you. I've configured this. If I look at the dim parcel, I put the where statement. And if I look at my fact table, I also configured a column level security because I do not want this person in this group to see my costs. Yeah, so right now you can see they are excluded. So if I click new rule, the only two columns that are available is cost ID and total cost, which means they are excluded. They don't have access to it. Yeah, so exclude, no access, include, access. All right, so now switching over to my dummy user and trying to look at the lake house. I can see that if I go back, we had the table dim parcel cost. It's missing. You don't see it. If someone sends me an SQL query, and I'll show you that as well, to try and access the table, I will not be able to. Yeah. But now looking at the fact table as well, you can see that my cost columns are excluded. So pretty smooth, pretty nice. This works. This is the first stage of OneLake Security. And this is the most essential thing that we are testing as well. Yeah. And here you can see that I gave the person access to the file. So if I now go back to my OneLake Security, let me see if this works live. And I click edit and I remove this from the role. Okay, so now the file is excluded, and I go back and I refresh this. Yeah, so this is the thing. It takes a while to kick in as well. Exactly, but it says user is not authorized to perform current operation, and then error code forbidden. Yeah, so also works on the file item. Again, yeah, I didn't want them to get access to the item within the folder. I had to configure it on the folder.
So Nadim, if you could show the row level security, maybe just the cost table that the table that you did not grant access to, just maybe add a simple row level security for that. That would be great.
Okay, so I can't because I excluded it, right? So that excluding it means that there's no access to that table. What I can do is I can grant access to that table. So now I include it. I click data. Okay. So now the person has access to dim parcel cost. But if I don't want them to go to, if I want them to see the table, but I simply don't want them to be able to see a row, I can give them a where statement, and now I have to guess. So let me check. Dim parcel cost. Okay, cost ID. And this is kind of a workaround I found. I don't suggest that you do this because the person will still be able to read the column names. Obviously, we don't want that. But if you want the person to get access to the cost, and I want them the cost ID to be equal to and this is the thing. I'm putting some random value in there that makes.
And I think they just wanted to see how to do one live. That's it. So
yeah. Now I gave some random value. So what should happen? I should get the table, but I should get blank columns because none of the columns have this value as a cost ID in it. Yeah. So this is a way to give the person still the ability to see the table. So here now I see dim parcel cost. But if I open it and if I load it, it should just return a blank table because the cost ID that I configured makes absolutely no sense.
Shabnam was mentioning that can we implement the dynamic row level security, meaning we have the concept of user principal name in Power BI desktop, and it can read who the user is, and from the table it dynamically picks what they have access to if the email is assigned to the region and whatnot, right? Do we have the concept of dynamic row level security in OneLake Security?
Yeah, not yet. That's what I said. That's exactly putting a join statement to make it dynamic is not there yet, but it's on the way. As far as I know, yeah. So I can't also give you 100% security on this. I can't tell you exactly what was told, but I can tell you that dynamic security is very much in consideration because it's obviously a necessity. Right now, it is again has to be configured on a table level basis. So here we have a random Power BI report, pretty basic. You can see cost IDs, you can see category IDs, and so on. I just wanted to show you. So now an admin configured this Power BI report. What does it look like for the end user? Unfortunately, like this. And the reason is we get these error messages is because someone configured it that had access to things that this user does not have access to. Yeah. You see the row level security for the dim parcel category kicking in. So this looks fine. I just see my W01 category. But for my dim parcel cost table, I just get this error message. And if I click on see details, we can see that the select permission was not given. That was denied. And now the tricky part comes into vision. You see here there's fact table. I have access to the fact table. What I do not have access to is this cost and cost ID column. Even though I just don't have access to columns, the entire visual is broken. And it tells me here specifically the select on these two columns is not giving. And two problems here. One, it tells me which column I don't have access to. So I know which column I don't have access to, which might be part of the security. I should not have access to know which column I don't have access to. So this is also something that's being addressed. And two, my visual is broken. Yeah. And this does not look nice for an end user. Yeah. So things like
The fix coming where it will not just show you those two columns and rest of them it will show. Is that the intention eventually?
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, not the final product. Yeah, same.
But no, I understand. I think that this is very important because like that's kind of the reason when object level security came out, it was a nightmare to deal with.
Yes, exactly. It was the same object level security. However, with the tabular editor, we could turn the table columns into field parameters and then put row level security on that table, and then it did not show that error. But you still had access behind the scene to the object, to the column. But it was a workaround to not get this error message. Now we don't even have that option anymore. So now it's just this error message. This is something that we simply have to temporarily deal with. But again, subject to change. Okay, cool. That's that. Now let's talk to the data agent. The data agent, yeah. So depending on how I configured this, I get a custom access denied error message. Yeah. If I look here at the SQL that was performed in the query output, you can see exactly what was given. And again, here's the risk of we know what column we don't have access to. Yeah, this is something that's still there. If we go into the agent instructions, you can see here all my agent instructions. These are typical instructions that I give. I set the temperature and so on. I don't know how much of it is really necessary. But here only display the columns that are asked, do not return all columns and so on. And then I tell it if a query returns no result, some security access, then give this kind of response. Yeah. And this is the kind of response that we are getting. What columns does the cost table have? Let me try and trick it into giving me some answer. And maybe it will give me the list of columns, but again, we see that we don't have access to this. Yeah. So this works also beautifully on the agent. Now, the cool thing is that the agent has an endpoint, an API endpoint. So if you use this agent, which is working only with structured data, into some multi-agent architecture, that OneLake Security will apply as well via that Entra ID security. So it inherits all the way into AI Foundry if you wanted to. So again, super powerful. And the final one is on the SQL endpoint. The SQL endpoint, there's two options. So one of them is to inherit OneLake Security, and the other one is to use, so here you see delegated identity. If you use user identity, it will, OneLake Security will apply. If you use delegated identity, then you can write some SQL statements to also give access to the things, yeah? And what I wanted to show you basically is that also in the SQL endpoint, there's no way around this. You can see here the tables, and again, and now it gets nice and preview style. Here I can see the total cost and cost ID column, but if I do a select statement and I select the top 100 rows from this, I will get a select permission. At least, however, it will tell me which two I cannot access. So if I delete them from my table as such, then my select statement should work. Yeah, and it works. Yeah, so these shouldn't be visible. Yeah, so this is a nice and preview style. They are visible, but I don't see them. I still don't get access. Yeah, so
hopefully, like as this thing kind of progresses, those columns visibility will go away, and the select star will automatically exclude them.
Exactly. Yeah, and obviously that would be the best case scenario for Power BI, rather than breaking my visual, mask the column or something similar like that. That would be nice to have situation, rather than again breaking the visual, that you simply don't see the column. It gets hidden or some access. Yeah. So this is something that also is being considered. Yeah, so just quickly revisiting the hypothesis that I initially set up. We were just focusing on the lake house. We saw that it inherits across everything, and obviously now I'll happily take some questions.
Now, I think we just looked at Lakehouse, right? So right now in the public preview, is that the only thing that's supported? Or is that something like if I'm setting the biggest one that people would ask, right? So one lake, one copy, lake house, right? Lake house is the central artifact pretty much. I know we are kind of going down that route, but question becomes shortcut, right? I think if I'm shortcutting from one lake house to another, I'm guessing that one already flows through. Question becomes is how does it work for like if I'm shortcutting a table from a warehouse, right?
So again, because it's right now, I don't have the ability to test this. I can't give you the definitive answer. But since security, OneLake Security will shift, will move into and expand into mirrored database, into warehouse, into real-time intelligence, all these things are coming. Cosmos DB probably as well. Shortcutting each one would also apply the security setting. Yeah, so it's just virtualizing the metadata. It should also apply. This is my expectation. If when we talk about unified security, this is my expectation that this will be unified across Fabric. I'm sure it will be the case, but again, like please note, yeah, like what I showed is like having to denormalize this, having to join these things. It's just a temporary state. It's in preview. Yeah, I'm just showing you that what does work and what works plays nice is that people get denied access all the way to Power BI, all the way to the data agent, the SQL endpoint. That if you do this in preview, they are not finding a way. Yeah, it's like I don't know, penetration testing. It just doesn't. There's no way you will get access, even if you try via the API. So it's nice that this works, but there's obviously still a long way for this to be production ready. From my perspective, and I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So I think I have one question specific to direct query model, so direct lake model, right? If I have a direct lake model and I have applied security on the dim table, right? In the direct lake model, even though they don't have access to the OneLake itself, would the numbers for the fact table already automatically get filtered because in direct lake it does have a relationship?
Wait, say
I throw a
can,
curveball.
again. Can you
So think about this, right? I have the customer table, right? And I have countries and whatnot. And then I've created this security called um, Khalid can see US and Nadim can see Germany, right? And after that, what we have done is we created a cascade under that. There's a fact table which has the invoices or production cost or which not, right? Now that table I did not apply OneLake Security to, and then I've created a direct lake model that has relationship with the customer table to the invoice table and all that fun stuff. Neither you or me have access to the OneLake. We're just looking at the Power BI semantic model. In that case, I know the dim table will work. Dim table already has the security configured. Now, when it sums the invoices, it should respect the relationship, but I just don't know what it will do.
Yeah. So I haven't tested what for example, what would it be like if I have the configuration on the dimension table and I actually have a semantic model with a relationship? The problem is it will only, if it does work, it will only work one way and one step into the fact table. It unless you do like this crazy non-best practice bidirectional.
No. I'm not talking about the
Yeah.
well relationship, but
Yeah.
this is curious for me, right? So I think this is something we'll probably go try it out ourselves.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Again, but if you don't include a table in your role, you will get access denied. Include it and configure it, and you get access to whatever you configure. Yeah. Exclude, no access. So that's also something that's probably not going to stay this way. I don't know. But this is currently how it is. Yeah, you exclude it. I would probably, if I would use it, I might prefer that I specifically deny access to a table rather than excluding it, so that I have a better overview of my security model. I don't know. This could be something that's funny. Yeah, can't promise as well.
and I think that was I think what we talked about the shortcuts and whatnot, right? So like I'm guessing this is where it gets fun, meaning like the security on the table has to be done at the source, right? If something is shortcutted, can I apply OneLake security on top of that?
And if you think about it, yeah, with the fabric of the platform, these multi-cloud architectures, they will be crazy difficult to unify security on. And having this simplification and this one place, for example, in the data governance, this one shop stop where you configure that security is kind of a game changer when it comes to managing security across something such a big platform. And respectively, it's taking time to assure that this works well and is user friendly. Yeah. So I know it's a bit this is a bit late to the whole fabric. I would have expected, I would have hoped for this to be already there, surely. But I can also understand how complex this is to actually implement. Because we are talking about lots of testing. Yeah, if one thing doesn't work, then the whole thing Yeah.
And like as you kind of showed, people will try to bypass security. What if I go this way? What if I go that way? What if I do this? Can I go from the Python? Can I go to an API call? Right? And each one of them, how the behavior has to be handled.
And what essentially Fabric is doing, it's preparing us for AI solutions, right? Prepping the data for AI. And one of the most uh, uh, dangerous things that I've seen on the client side is they implement some agentic solution, and that agent is spitting out salaries of other employees if you ask them for. We don't want that. Yeah, we don't want that.
I know, I know. I think that's kind of my. So I think I'll say two competing statements. One is I think OneLake Security will become the foundation of Fabric. I think one of the features in Microsoft Fabric that works really well is the the data side of it, the storage and whatnot. I think they got that story figured out, and I think the it's kind of like unsung hero of Power BI. The row level security is kind of one of the biggest factor in Power BI. I think the same thing is going to apply to OneLake Security. Uh, but going back to your thing about AI and data agents and stuff like that, that's why I think my preferred way of building agents right now is grounded in semantic model, because I do not want to take the risk because it inherits the security automatically and we can build from there. But thank you very much for showing us all this. It was personally very valuable for me as well. And thank you everyone for joining, and we'll talk soon.
Yep. Take care. Cheers. Bye bye.